Yeah, well, there are there's a certain group of legal, large group of legal observers and litigators who worry about an abridgment of the rule of law. But then there's another segment that says this is all sort of hand wringing, perhaps hyperbolic. How do we find what is the truth between those two? I mean, Jack Smith. Also, this is sort of a separate question, but similar, related. I mean, Jack Smith. I guess based partly on the Supreme Court's immunity decision, he will likely be winding down his cases, two cases against former President Trump. But how much is it likely that he will take the steps that he's threatened, that he's said in the last 4 years that he's been out of office, versus a little bit of angst on the part of legal observers?
So I think well, remains to be seen, but I do think that there is a certain part of Trump's rhetoric, particularly over these last 4 years, and then even more so during the campaign, that is about being kind of hyperbolic, being very provocative, and I don't expect them that he will make good on everything that he has said he would do. For one thing, he didn't do that the first term, right? There are lots of things that he talked about doing in his campaign time before he was elected that weren't completed. I mean, building the wall and having Mexico pay for it is one example. Yes, he built small little portions of the wall, but nothing anywhere close to what he had promised when he was campaigning. So I think it's entirely possible that he will pull back on some of the more extreme things that he has been talking about doing on day one and shortly thereafter. I also think there are things he's talking about doing that, frankly, he just can't do on his own. And even though there's a lot of, talk and speculation about the fact that he's much more likely, and I happen to agree with this, he's more likely to surround himself by people he perceives as more loyal and more willing to do his bidding, not people who are going to tell him, no, don't do that. That wouldn't be lawful, or that wouldn't be in conformance with norms, right, throughout our history. Even if he brings in people who are more willing to cast those norms aside, and those norms are what the rule of law is about, um, it's still, he can't do everything on his own and with just a few advisors. I mean, if he's going to try to use the Department of Justice against political enemies, that's going to take more than just his political appointees. It's going to take line prosecutors down at the level of the U.S. Attorney's Office, or the line levels of the criminal division. It will take investigators willing to engage in potentially baseless investigations, grand juries willing to indict baselessly, and courts willing to go along with things and not dismiss cases that are unfounded. And that's a lot of moving parts to make that happen. Mass deportations, right? He's going to have people to make that happen. People that would, go into communities and round up immigrants, at least purportedly, and some sort of mechanism for the deportations, right? And so these are not things he can do overnight. These are not things he can do on his own or with a small circle of political appointees. So I don't think it's wrong for people to be pointing out some of the very extreme things he's promised, but I do think we need to step back and realize that he's unlikely to be able to accomplish all of those things, irrespective of what he has said during the campaign season.
And to your point